Today, we're diving into a story that, on the surface, looks like just another messy divorce, but it's actually a masterclass in legal strategy. It's a battle over a mind-boggling amount of money, sure, but the real fight? It's about something way more fundamental. When should hard, fast rules win out over what a judge just feels is fair?
Okay, let's start with the number at the absolute heart of this case, $437,628. Now get this, that's not the total value of their fortune. Nope, this is how much one person spent, almost all of it on lawyers, out of a shared pot of money after they had already separated.
And right there, that's the big puzzle. The wife, Miss Trevi, spent this small fortune defending herself. The first judge who heard the case said, yeah, that's okay. But then, an appeal court came in and completely flipped the script. They said that money had to be notionally put back into the pile before it was divided. This single move shifted hundreds of thousands of dollars from one person's column to the other. So, how on earth is that possible?
To really get what happened, you have to understand the people at the center of this storm. After a 19-year marriage, Mr. and Ms. Trevi weren't just in different places emotionally, financially they were living on completely different planets.
I mean, the power imbalance here is just stark. On one side, you have Mr. Trevi. He's an equity partner at a top-tier law firm, pulling in a staggering $30,000 a week. And his biggest weapon, his own law firm was representing him. On the other side, you have Miss Trevi. She'd been the main caregiver for their 3 kids, out of the professional world for almost 2 decades, and was now in a fight for her entire financial future.
So after a grueling 8.5 years of separation, they finally get their day in court. A trial judge makes a call, and at first glance, it looked like a massive, massive win for Miss Trevi.
The court looked at their total asset pool, over $8 million, and split it 60-40 in the wife's favor. The idea was to make up for the huge gap in their earning power moving forward. We're talking about a difference of almost $2 million. It really seemed like a fair outcome. But, the devil is always in the details.
And here is the detail that changed everything. The trial judge made a crucial call. That $437,000 Miss Trevi had already spent on her lawyers? The judge said it shouldn't be counted against her. The reasoning was, well, it seems fair because Mr. Trevi isn't really paying for his lawyers. But for Mr. Trevi, this wasn't about fairness. He saw it as a fundamental legal error. And that one point, that became the entire basis for his appeal.
So the case escalates. It goes to the full court of the family court. And now, the fight isn't about who did what during the marriage anymore. It becomes this pure legal showdown. Should a clear, established legal principle be bent just to achieve what one judge thinks is fair in a weird situation?
This whole thing hinges on a really important legal idea called the add-back. It's a powerful tool. Basically, it means if you spend shared money on yourself after you separate, the court can just pretend that money is still there when they do the final math. It gets added back to the pool, and it's basically treated as an advance on your final share.
Now, the husband's entire case was built on this one powerful precedent from a famous case called Corn and Hopkins, and it lays down a really clear guideline. If the money for legal fees comes from a joint asset, like say the money from selling the family home, it should be added back. This was his legal trump card.
So you have these two arguments just clashing head-on. The husband's team is saying, look, the law is the law. The quorum rule is clear, that money came from a joint asset, and by not adding it back, you're making me pay for 60% of my wife's lawyers. But the wife's team argued for flexibility. They said, this case is totally unusual. He has no real legal costs. They saw the judge's original decision as the only way to level a very lopsided playing field.
So this brings us to the moment of truth. The appeal court has to make the final call. Was this a case for bending the rules for fairness, or was it time for the cold, hard logic of the law to win the day?
The appeal court just systematically took the original verdict apart, piece by piece. First, they said the judge completely muddled 2 different parts of the legal process. Second, they said her whole reason for not adding the money back, the husband's weird lawyer situation, was legally irrelevant. It had nothing to do with where the wife's money came from. But the knockout punch was the third point. The court said the trial judge totally missed the most critical consequence of her own decision.
And with that, the husband's appeal was successful. The first judge's order was tossed out. The principle of the add-back stood firm.
So here's what that actually means. The court ordered that $437,628 had to be put back into the asset pool before the 60-40 split happened.
This meant the wife's final cash payout was going to be way less because that $437,000 was now counted as money she'd already gotten.
All right, so this case is way more than just a fascinating legal drama. It is packed with some seriously powerful lessons for anyone who might find themselves navigating a tough financial separation. So let's break down what you need to know. So what can we take away from all this? First, and this is the big one, a joint account is a joint account until a court order says it's not. Spending a ton of money from that shared pot, like Ms. Trevi did, is a huge, huge gamble. Second, how you pay for your legal fight isn't just a detail, it's a critical strategic choice. Third, just feeling that something is unfair is not enough in court. You have to back that feeling up with cold, hard legal principles. And finally, this case proves that the process is just as important as the outcome. The appeal court didn't rule on who was more right. They ruled on whether the correct legal steps were followed.
And that kind of leaves us with this final thought, doesn't it? This whole case was a head-on collision between a clear legal rule and a judge's attempt to be fair in a really unique situation. In the end, the rule won. And it makes you wonder, in the messy, complicated parts of our own lives, when is it better to stick to the letter of the law, and when is it right to bend the rules for what just feels right? It's a tough question with no easy answer.